Hey, it's Eric with Chasing Sun. If you are curious about the hammock tent because you're coming from the traditional type, this video will share with you what it's all about. All right, so I am moto camping this weekend with a buddy, Luke, and he's got a hammock tent. And I've been curious about these hammock tents because I've been considering what tent should I bring for my motorcycle world trip. And the problem with the traditional tent is the poles are too long, so you can't put it inside a saddlebag or anything like that. You have to strap it around the bike. So I was looking around, seeing, okay, what other options are there for tents I can pack in a little bit more compact, and hammock tent was on my list. So in this video, I'm gonna help you review if I actually like a hammock tent or not. But before I get into my review, I'll get Luke to introduce a bit about the idea of a hammock tent because he's been using hammock tents for a while. So he'll give you a good overview, and then we'll jump into the likes and dislikes. Here's my buddy, Luke, and he is the guy with the hammock tent that lent it to me. So why don't you cover what's the difference between a hammock tent and a traditional tent, pros and cons from your experience? You've been at it for what, 7 years, right?
7 years or so is when I got the first one.
Yeah.
The biggest pro for me is being off the ground. I have never had a good experience really camping, and I know a lot of people are going to say it's because you don't buy good gear, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But it is any way that you're camping, it's a significant investment. So you buy it once and you keep it forever if you can make it work.
But you know, even if you don't get wet on the ground, you still get cold compared to this. This is off the ground.
Yeah, if you have a good like roll underneath it, a good thinsulate mat or anything like that,
yeah, that helps.
It does help. And I never liked that though, because when that happens, if you roll off that mat, then you're awake.
Right. Because
as soon as it will always leach body heat away from you, especially in a wet condition. So especially if there's water on the ground, there's nothing warm. But in the summertime, generally, like I feel a tent is probably fine. I have chosen the gear that I have because I like to put it on my motorcycle. I like to be able to just stop. But cons on that is it's really set for one person. You can jimmy a second person in there, but you're literally jimmying a second person in there.
Yeah.
Another con is getting changed in a hammock. I don't know, but
impossible. Yeah. I tried.
It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Third is, unless you're gonna buy an underquilt and a top quilt, getting yourself into a sleeping bag when you're inside, the best thing to do is do it outside while you're on the ground standing up, and then just fall into a hammock. Because it is hard to shimmy into one of those because you've always got pressure on the back. So you have to lift your back up, your butt up, your legs up, and basically work yourself into a pair of pants while lying down. And a lot of places will not let you hammock camp in a protected forest or in a national forest.
Even if you use the 1-inch cord?
A lot of places will say no hammock.
Okay.
And that's another con there. Even a further con to that is sometimes you can't even find 2 trees that you're gonna set up on, which is why I would recommend going with a hammock that can also be put on the ground. There are a number of them. I was telling Eric earlier, I would probably go with like the Haven XL, which is a line going across between 2 trees and then almost literally a bed that hangs down off of it. It's a semi-rigid surface that you blow up and you get into, and then you can recline as a recliner, but it also has the cover and everything like that to keep you dry. It does have poles, so you're always going to need that. I won't list it as a pro that it takes less space. A hammock does not take less space.
So this is the 4. Now I thought it actually packs better, which I think it does because it's separated, so you can stuff in different parts. And his pole compared to my tent pole, which is 30 inches, these are shorter, I can fit this in my saddlebags. What is good is it's optional. This is for the rain fly.
Yep.
If you are really packing tight and you got nothing this long, like you want something this long, you don't have to bring it.
Yep.
That's good to know.
And these tend to stuff pretty small if you need to fill a spot, and they're light.
That's true.
These are expensive. I think that this one is probably $400 or so US.
This is the fly, right?
This is the fly. This is about $100 US. I think this is about $180 US.
Yeah.
The Talon slings that I use are probably about $30 US. These are like $10, no big deal.
Right.
The pegs that come with the fly are a very, very high quality tapered aluminum. They do not bend, they do not break. You will lose them if there's not a string attached to them, so make your decisions wisely. Or if they shoot out from into the ground, they tend to launch.
Now the setup time, I would say it does take a bit longer than a traditional ground tent.
Yeah, depending on the tent, yeah.
And the takedown too.
And I do take it down with the specific purpose of not letting anything touch the ground. So I could do it faster if I just tore it all down and then stuffed it. But you see, I put the strings away, I put the lines away, I put all of it away.
Yeah, you gotta be very systematic.
Meticulous, yeah, pedantic, right? So, based on that though, I'm a big fan of the hammock, if it's the right hammock.
All right, this is my first time getting inside a hammock tent. So let's see how we're gonna do this. I have a bag here of my stuff. Back in first, right, Luke? Butt in?
You can dive in if you want, I don't care.
I'm not gonna try to dive in, man. All right, so what's
just
the trick
back
here?
it in and just back it in and lay down, man.
Oh,
it's just all about the trust.
It's not as scary as I thought.
It's just all about the trust. That's it, you're all set.
Let's jump into the likes and dislikes now that I've had a chance to experience a hammock tent, so that you get a experience coming from someone who's used to a traditional tent. So first of all, the likes. I do like that it's elevated off the floor. And if you've ever camped in the rain, which this weekend was, you would be glad that you had something off the floor, because although you have a tarp with a traditional tent, the water still kind of runs underneath and it still usually feels very cold underneath. Now, it was raining all night, and that is one saving grace with hammock tents, is that you're raised and elevate up the ground, so you're dry. You're always dry. There's this rain fly. You can see I've got this rain fly here. It's the fact that it's elevated, very nice. I like that. Also, the other thing that I do like is that I'm not going to say that it packs smaller, because there's actually 2 or 3 packs depending on what options you bring with it, and there's still poles. The poles are shorter than the traditional tents, but it's still there. So I think as a package, the overall size, a traditional tent is actually smaller because it's only got one bag with the poles, with canvas, everything in there. Here, although the poles are shorter, you have 2 bags and the pole bag. So it does pack easier because you have more options. You can separate out the 3 bags and then put it into different places. So that's the like part of it. So what do I dislike about it? It definitely takes some getting used to, because most of us who camp on a tent, you're used to a flat surface. So your body's flat and you've got a flat area to move around. So when you get into hammock tent, you're in this bit of a kind of concave position and you don't have a flat surface to lay out on. So if you're a side sleeper or if you move around a lot, it's a little bit different. And then also the other thing about hammock tents is that I was trying this inflatable pillow and it did not work well because it pushes my head up. Usually when you're on a flat surface, that's fine and it helps. But because you're not perfectly flat, you've got a bit of a bow on your body. Your head's kind of tilted already, so you really don't need another pillow to push your head up even more. When you're sleeping, you're never really flat, so you have to kind of get used to that. And I can imagine that some people might not like that feeling. It took me a while to get used to it the first night, but after a while in the first night, it was okay. The other dislike is that unlike a traditional tent where, if I camp myself, I'll take a 2-person tent because I need the space beside to put out my gear and stuff. If it's raining outside, I'm packing, I'm unpacking, everything inside the tent, and it's easy, right? I got everything beside me. That's not the case with hammock tents. Hammock tents is not like a regular tent where you have space beside you to put out your gear and everything. And also you don't have that flat surface where you lay out your gear inside and you're dry and you grab stuff if you need it. My gear is outside. Now I do have a fly to keep me dry, but I have to crawl outside to grab my stuff or reach outside. That part I didn't like very much. I have a chair out here that I put out beside me so that I can lay out my gear and everything, just grab it. So that's what you have to do, and that's what I have to expect with hammock tents. This is what it looks like with my body here. So you're kind of squished in this little cocoon. They have a extra cargo net underneath. That means that you have to reach outside, reach under for whatever you need. Now, it's not a big deal, but if you're kind of warm and cozy inside already, you have to get outside and grab what you need. So that is one thing that I dislike about it, and from that perspective, I probably prefer a traditional tent. And now, if you are sleeping in a hammock tent, I'll show you a tip that Luke showed me to get as flat as possible, which is to sleep diagonally. All right, so I get what Luke means now when he says sleep diagonally, to be straight. So you can see me right now. I'm kind of diagonal, my foot's on that end, and my foot's on that end, and my body is on the other end. And as you can see, it's pretty straight. It's not bad, better than before. So it just takes some getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, then it's not too bad. Now, of course, being a hammock, you do have to find campsites with trees, but I don't think that's a problem, at least in North America. If you're camping in a desert or the Bonneville Salt Flats, that's a different story. But with Luke, most of the time he's been able to find 2 trees to just stretch out the tension wire. The system itself is very well designed and very well engineered, and there's lots of different options like the fly for the rain, the under quilt for the warmth, and also the cargo net underneath. Now, if you can pack a little bit more and you don't want the hammock tent or a traditional tent, you could consider a motorcycle tent. There's a few of these. This is the Red Verse, and what that is there's actually a drive-through. You can park your bike inside and have it all nice and dry when you pack and unpack. So that's a really good option to consider. So there you have it, a full overview of what a hammock tent is, the pros and cons. I hope this video had helped you to decide if the hammock tent is right for you or not. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and follow me for more motorcycle and travel adventures.